Beth English, Executive Director of the Organization of American Historians. This afternoon, we'll be honoring those who have won awards or prizes for their scholarship, their teaching, and their filmmaking. Before we begin the award ceremony, though, I'd like to take a moment to recognize and remember OAH colleagues who we've lost in the past year. Dino Barnum, Darrell E. Bigham, Robert Branfund, William G. Brown Jr., John David Bunker, Rand Burnett, Daniel H. Calhoun, Alfred A. Cave, Douglas Holt Klein, Philip Michael Cochran, Bruce S. Cohen, William Cohen, E. Dwayne Elbert, John J. Fox, Frank A. Friedman, Henry F. Graff, Samuel Haber, Alan R. Havig, Harold D. Langley, Robert W. Larson, David Saul Levin, John E. Little, Paul John Loatman Jr., John E. Miller, John M. Murrin, John R. Neff, Patricia A. Palmieri, Doris A. Pyroth, Richard Polenberg, Ann K. Rowley, Stanley A. Skalsky, William John Steiger, Errol Stevens, Robert Polk Thompson, James W. Whitaker, and John E. Wickman. We thank all of these OAH members for their years of dedication and service to the organization. In compiling this list in February, if we miss any of our colleagues who have passed, please let us know so that they can be included in next year's memoriam. As we shift now to the presentation of awards, let me introduce OAH President-elect Philip J. DeLauria.
The Organization of American Historians sponsors awards and prizes given in recognition of scholarly and professional achievements in the field of American history. At this time, I would like to present the awards and prizes for 2021. But first, I would like to acknowledge the many award and prize committee members who gave generously of their time and expertise. They are listed in the awards program along with excerpts from their reports. I'd like to thank all of them for the many hours of hard work and the difficult decisions made on behalf of the OAH. The OAH gives the Roy Rosenzweig Distinguished Service Award to an individual or individuals whose contributions have significantly enriched our understanding and appreciation of American history. Recognizing a stellar career as an academic historian and an equally stellar record as a public interpreter of the American past for communities across Texas, the Organization of American Historians presents Professor Emilio Zamora of the University of Texas at Austin with the OAH Roy Rosenzweig Distinguished Service Award. Professor Zamora is not only an award-winning researcher and writer, but also a visible scholar citizen who has made significant contributions to the public understanding of Mexican-American people in Texas. Emilio Zamora has roots in the Mexico-Texas region dating back to the 1700s, growing up and educating himself on both sides of the border. His research interests include the history of Mexicans in the United States and their relationship with Mexico, as well as oral history, the history of the U.S. working class, Texas history, and the archival enterprise in Texas and northern Mexico. Dr. Zamora has single-authored 3 books, co-edited 3 anthologies, assisted in the production of a Texas history text, co-authored a Texas history text for high schools, co-edited an ebook on Tejano history, translated and edited a World War I diary, and written numerous scholarly articles, chapters, and essays. He has received 7 Best Book Awards, a Best Article Prize, and a Fulbright Garcia Robles Fellowship. Zamora is a lifetime member of the Texas Institute of Letters, a lifetime fellow with the Texas State Historical Association, and a former member of the Board of Directors, and a former president of the Texas State Historical Association. In recognition of his many contributions to the pursuit of historical knowledge and his work as a public-facing scholar, intellectual, and educator, the Organization of American Historians is proud to present Emilio Zamora with the OAH Roy Rosenzweig Distinguished Service Award.
Hello, everyone. I'm recording this from the state of Texas after surviving the major disruption in our lives by the drastic change in the weather. We've survived and we're doing okay. I hope everybody else is doing all right. I want to thank everyone involved in my selection for the Roy Rosenzweig Distinguished Service Award. I am honored and humbled since my name will now appear next to distinguished scholars from throughout the country. I'm especially gratified that you recognize the work that I do. not because it brings me special distinction, but because you value the cause of community engagement, particularly the service that we extend to the Mexican and Latino communities of the United States. Our multidisciplinary research has drawn much attention to the historical and contemporary condition of Mexicans as an ethnic minority in a bottom segment of the American working class, as well as to their heroic struggles for recognition, dignity, and social justice. Some of us have joined in these fights, heeding the call for action in the Plan de Santa Barbara, the 1969 proposal to bring the university to the community and the community to the university. Once again, I thank you very much. You honor me with this recognition.
The OAH gives the Friend of History Award to an institution or organization or an individual working primarily outside college or university settings for outstanding support of historical research, the public presentation of American history, or the work of the Organization of American Historians. The OAH is pleased to give the Friend of History Award for Refusing to Forget. Refusing to Forget, an educational nonprofit, works to increase public awareness of an often forgotten period in the history of the United States and to raise the profile of a struggle for justice and civil rights that continues to influence social relationships today. Between 1910 and 1920, ethnic Mexicans living on the Texas-Mexico border were targets of state-sanctioned violence. The dead included women and men, the aged and the young, longtime residents and recent arrivals. They were killed by strangers, by neighbors, by vigilantes, and at the hands of local law enforcement officers and the Texas Rangers. Some were summarily executed after being taken captive or shot under the flimsy pretext of trying to escape. Some were left in the open to rot, others desecrated by being burnt, decapitated, or tortured. Extralegal executions became so common that a San Antonio reporter observed that finding of dead bodies of Mexicans suspected for various reasons of being connected with the Troubles has reached a point where it creates little or no interest. It is only when a raid is reported or an American is killed that the ire of the people is aroused. Far from being surreptitious, the violence was welcomed, celebrated, and even instigated at the highest levels of society and government. Although historians estimate that several thousand Mexican nationals and American citizens were killed, this period of violence has received little public attention. The advocacy and awareness-raising work of Refusing to Forget has included the launching of a major museum exhibit at the Bullock, Texas State Historical Museum and working to erect historical markers across 7 Texas counties. It has meant convening conversations and creating lesson plans for K-12 educators. For all these efforts, and in recognition of its continuing ambitions for the future, Refusing to Forget receives the 2021 OAH Friend of History Award.
Thank you. We are honored to receive the 2021 OAH Friend of History Award. Professors John Moran Gonzalez, Sonia Hernandez, Benjamin Johnson, Monica Munoz Martinez, Trinidad Gonzalez, and Christopher Carbona collaborate to bring public awareness to the long history of anti-Mexican violence in Texas and the long struggle for justice and civil rights along the U.S.-Mexico border. Despite numerous publications, this history continued to be forgotten or worse, celebrated in public history and popular culture. Working with cultural institutions, teachers, journalists, and descendants of racist violence, we have designed public history projects that provide truthful accountings of the past, foster urgent public dialogue, and provide opportunities for healing and repair.
In the 1910s, along the U.S.-Mexico border, hundreds, if not thousands, of Mexican descent people died at the hands of their neighbors, vigilante mobs, local law enforcement, the Texas Rangers, and U.S. soldiers. They were shot alone along the sides of roads, huddled together in groups, and gunned down, tortured, and murdered in front of their families. Assailants enjoyed a culture of impunity. Despite this climate of terror, survivors, relatives, and neighbors sought justice and called for an end to the violence. For too long, local residents carried this burden.
We have pursued a multifaceted public history project in an effort to ensure that these atrocities are remembered and discussed as a part of the American historical inheritance. This includes a large exhibit at the Bob Bullock Texas State History Museum in Austin, the approval and erection of 4 state historical markers along the U.S.-Mexico border describing the violence and efforts to resist it, and public programming and memorialization events centered on some of the key sites and anniversaries of this tragic history.
At every public history event, we are asked, when will this history be taught in public schools? Refusing to Forget members have made presentations to teachers, provided oral history workshops for students, developed educational videos, created a lesson plan on the life of Jovita Hidar, and collaborated with teachers. Mr. Juan Carmona in Donna, Texas, and his students helped recover lost primary sources and have made research presentations at commemorative events.
Our work continues. In the midst of an alarming rise of anti-Latinx hate crimes and xenophobia, we have also written for public audiences and worked with journalists to provide historical context for understanding the long history of anti-Mexican violence and anti-Latinx violence today. Latinx histories must be a part of the current reconsideration of race, violence, and historical memorialization underway across the country. We hope to play a role in the replacement of monuments, exhibits, and curricula that celebrate the lives of white supremacists with those that instead honor people who resisted such violence in the hopes of building a more just future. This work is possible thanks to the generations of witnesses and survivors who refused to be intimidated, who left personal records documenting racial terror, who shared their stories with their children, and those who passed memories from one generation to the next. They helped make sure that the names of victims like Antonio Rodriguez, Antonio Longoria, Jesus Bazan, Concepcion Garcia, Longino Flores, and Balina Cerda would not be forgotten. They call on all of us to refuse to forget and to call out racial injustice in all its forms today.
Now I would like to present the book, dissertation, article, teaching, and film prizes for 2021. The Frederick Jackson Turner Award is given annually for an author's first scholarly book dealing with some aspect of American history. The Merle Curti Social History Award is given each year for the best book published in American social history. The Liberty Legacy Foundation Award is given annually for the best book on the civil rights struggle from the beginnings of the nation to the present. Chosen for these awards is Johanna Fernandez from the Baruch College of the City University of New York for The Young Lords, A Radical History, published with the University of North Carolina Press. Receiving honorable mention from the Frederick Jackson Turner Award Committee is Jessica Marie Johnson from Johns Hopkins University for Wicked Flesh, Black Women, Intimacy, and Freedom in the Atlantic World, published with the University of Pennsylvania Press. Receiving honorable mention from the Liberty Legacy Foundation Award Committee is Kito J. Swan, the University of Massachusetts at Boston, for Paulu's Diaspora, Black Internationalism and Environmental Justice, published with the University Press of Florida. The Merle Curti Intellectual History Award is given each year for the best book published in American intellectual history. The winner is Garrett Felber from the University of Mississippi. For the book Those Who Know Don't Say, The Nation of Islam, the Black Freedom Movement, and the Carceral State, published with the University of North Carolina Press. Receiving honorable mention is Nate Holdren of Drake University for Injury Impoverished, Workplace Accidents, Capitalism, and the Law in the Progressive Era, published with Cambridge University Press. The Ray Allen Billington Prize is given every 2 years for the best book on the history of Native and/or settler peoples in frontier, border, and borderland zones of intercultural contact in any century to the present, and to include works that address the legacies of those zones. The winner this year is Jeffrey Osler of the University of Oregon for Surviving Genocide, Native Nations, and the United States from the American Revolution to Bleeding Kansas, published with Yale University Press. The Civil War and Reconstruction Book Award is given annually for the most original book on the coming of the Civil War, the Civil War years, or the era of Reconstruction. The Darlene Clark Hine Award is given annually for the best book in African American women's or gender history. The Mary Nicholas Prize in U.S. women's and/or gender history is given annually for the most original book in U.S. women's and/or gender history. Winning these 3 awards and prizes is Thavolia Glimpf from Duke University for The Women's Fight, the Civil War's Battles for Home, Freedom, and Nation, published with the University of North Carolina Press. Receiving honorable mention from the Darlene Clark Hine Award Committee is Dana Ramey Berry of the University of Texas at Austin and Callie Nicole Gross from Emory University for A Black Women's History of the United States, published with Beacon Press. The James A. Raleigh Prize is given annually for the best book dealing with the history of race relations in the United States. Receiving the award is Vincent Brown from Harvard University for Tacky's Revolt, the Story of an Atlantic Slave War, published with the Belknap Press of Harvard University Press. Receiving honorable mention is Marcia Chatelain of Georgetown University for Franchise, The Golden Arches in Black America, published by W.W. Norton. The Willie Paul Adams Award is given every 2 years for the best book on American history published in a language other than English. Selected for the award this year is Elsie Devienne from Northumbria University for The Sand Rush, an environmental history of Los Angeles beaches in the 20th century. The Ellis W. Hawley Prize is given annually for the best book-length historical study of the political economy, politics, or institutions of the United States in its domestic or international affairs from the Civil War to the present. Selected for this year's prize is Lila Corwin Berman of Temple University for The American Jewish Philanthropic Complex, the History of a Multi-Billion-Dollar Institution, published with Princeton University Press. The Lawrence W. Levine Award is given annually for the best book in American cultural history. The committee chose Marcia Chatelain from Georgetown University for Franchise, The Golden Arches in Black America, published again by the Liveright Publishing Corporation of W.W. Norton and Company. With co-sponsorship by the Labor and Working Class History Association, the David Montgomery Award is given annually for the best book on a topic in American labor and working class history. Selected to receive this year's award is Veronica Martinez Matsuda of Cornell University for Migrant Citizenship, Race, Rights, and Reform in the U.S. Farm Labor Camp Program, published with the University of Pennsylvania Press. The Lerner Scott Prize is given annually for the best doctoral dissertation in U.S. women's history. Receiving the prize is Michaela Klaber of Northwestern University. The dissertation was completed at the College of William and Mary under the direction of Dr. Joshua Piker with Dr. Brett Rushforth, Dr. Lisa Meyer, Dr. Hannah Rosen, and Dr. Guillaume Albert. The title of this dissertation is Gendered Societies, Sexual Empires, French Colonization Among the Illinois. The next 3 awards are related to the Journal of American History. The Louis Pelzer Memorial Award is given annually for the best essay in American history by a graduate student. The winner is Esther Sina of Columbia University for Schooling the Kleptocracy, Racism, and School Finance in Rural North Carolina, 1900 to 2018. The Binkley Stevenson Award is given annually for the best article that appeared in the Journal of American History during the preceding calendar year. The committee chose Cornell Chang of Rutgers University, Newark for Independence Without Liberation, Democratization as Decolonization Management in U.S. Occupied Korea, 1945 to 1948. The David Thalen Award is given every 2 years for the best article on American history published in a language other than English. Selected to receive the award is Wang Yu of Sichuan University for Bas La Follette and the Paradox of the Progressive Movement, published in the Journal of Sichuan University Philosophy and Social Science edition. The Huggins Quarles Award is given annually to one or two graduate students of color to assist them with expenses related to travel to research collections for the completion of the PhD dissertation. The committee selected one recipient this year, Brianna Adeline Royster of New York University, for Of Our Stock and Blood, Empire, Religion, and Afro-Diasporic Identity, 1838 to 1945. The John D'Amelio LGBTQ History Dissertation Award is given annually for the best PhD dissertation in U.S. LGBTQ history. Receiving this year's award is Elizabeth Francis George, K-12 educator, curriculum developer, and guidance counselor for Lesbian and Gay Life in the Queen City and Beyond, Resistance, Space, and Community Mobilization in the Southwest Missouri Ozarks. Dissertation completed at SUNY Buffalo under the direction of Dr. Susan Kahn. The John Hyam Research Fellowship is given annually to two graduate students writing doctoral dissertations for a PhD in American history. The committee chose Bobby Cervantes from the University of Kansas for Las Colonias, the Housing of Poverty in Modern Americas, and David Helps of the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, Securing the World City, Policing, Migration, and the Struggle for Global Los Angeles, 1973 to 1994. The Mary K. Bonesteel Taka Teacher of the Year Award is given annually for contributions made by pre-collegiate teachers to improve history education within the field of American history. This year, the committee selected Sergio de Alba of the R.M. Mayano Elementary School in Los Banos, California. The Eric Barnow Award is given annually for outstanding programming on television or in documentary film concerned with American history, the study of American history, and/or the promotion of American history. Receiving this year's award is The People vs. Agent Orange, directors Alan Adelson, Kate Taverna, producers Alan Adelson, Kate Taverna, Veronique Bernard, editor Kate Taverna, executive producers Abigail Disney, Maxine Franklin, Sally Jo Pfeiffer, Gina Rettiker, Lois Vossen, supervising producer David Eisenberg, commissioning editor Mark Edwards, is a Films for Humanity co-production with Independent Television Service for Independent Lens and ARTE France. The Stanton Horton Award for Excellence in National Park Service History is given annually to recognize excellence in historical projects for, by, and with the National Park Service, and is intended to honor projects, parks, or programs that make the NPS a leader in promoting public understanding of and engagement with American history. The winner this year is the Illinois Freedom Project, led by Timothy P. Townsend, Chief of Interpretation and historian at the Lincoln Home National Historic Site, with partners the Old State Capitol State Historic Site and the Abraham Lincoln National Heritage Area. Other organizations have been involved throughout the development of this project, including the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, Ascend, the Boys and Girls Club of Central Illinois, Greening Youth Foundation, the Illinois Bureau of Tourism, Illinois Department of Natural Resources, the National Park Foundation, the National Park Service, the Organization of American Historians, the Outlet, Sangamon County Metro 4-H, the Sigma Beta Club, Springfield and Central Illinois African American History Museum, and Springfield Frontiers. Please join me in congratulating the 2021 OAH Award and Prize winners.
I'm George Sanchez, President of the Organization of American Historians. First, I'd like to thank all of the scholars who served on committees to make these selections for the awards tonight. Normally, for all of you winners, I would be here shaking your hands tonight. But instead, all I can do is congratulate you on your achievements. So congratulations and good night.
We would like to congratulate and thank all of our members who have achieved 25, 35, and 45 years of continued membership in the OAH during the year 2021. We especially wish to recognize our new 50-year OAH members and of course, all of those who have been members of the organization for 60 years or more. We thank you for your membership and your loyalty to the organization. And please note that new 50 and 60 years or more distinguished members who reached that milestone in 2021 are listed in the awards program, and all distinguished members who achieved a milestone this year are listed in the annual meeting program. And finally, let me remind you that the address by President George Sanchez will be held tomorrow evening following the business meeting, which begins at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you much.